John Zadell. I'm joined by Dom Scarcella. We will be reviewing and recapping WWE Smackdown every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. West Coast time. So we will be here after Smackdown every Friday night.
And we're here now. We're enjoying it. We just saw an interesting go home show for a pay-per-view tomorrow. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, don't bury the lead. What's the big thing that we're talking about, John? What was your take there on the main event, the big thing that happened here?
Absolutely do not bury the lead. Don't bury the lead, because ultimately we had a great main event. Pretty shocking, because this is our second SmackDown, and they had pretty much something where it wasn't a big schmaz necessarily. Like, they had like a build up to the match. They gave us a match. The match was good. So we had Sheamus versus Gunther for the Intercontinental title. I like that they're highlighting the Intercontinental title in the main event. And there's a couple things specifically that I liked about the main event.
Sure, go for it.
They actually set it up from last week's show coming into this week's show.
Continuity. So this wasn't just thrown together. It's just, apparently this is a long-standing feud. I got that too.
I like the vocab word, continuity, which is right. Continuity within this show. It was for a belt, so there was some sort of stake on the line, and they show the belt. They give the real intro, where they're from, and the big cheers for that. So you're like, okay, cool. We actually have a 20-minute main event. Those are high-level things I liked right away. Dom, anything you wanted to add about this specific main event?
Going into it, you had to wonder, and we did. All right, is this going to be a real match? Like, are they going to let them go 20 minutes and have a real match and settle it in the ring? Because they had a lot of other things to do here. They're still trying to tease the pay-per-view. That there's going to be a Donnybrook match apparently between these two factions. And they managed to set up the Donnybrook and have a pretty decent match in the ring. I like how it ended. I like, they did for a while the standard guy kicks out of other guy's finisher. Okay, so then the other guy kicks out of the other guy's finisher. So they're doing that. HD TV shows you the abrasions opening up there on Sheamus's chest. So they were taking some shots there.
Yeah.
And I think you had even said that you noticed maybe Gunther took a shot to the mouth there and was maybe bleeding a little from his mouth.
Yeah.
So these guys,
this one was pretty violent.
They were working stiff.
I'll have to say, these guys were really stiffing each other a lot. And there was some, it's great. Hard way blood is good, rather than a blade job. And then all the marks on Sheamus's chest. Ultimately, coming home here, there's interference, and Gunther whacks Sheamus with some sort of foreign object. I don't know what it is.
Shillelagh, that's the Irish thing. So he kind of used Sheamus's weapon. So Sheamus's weapon wound up doing him in.
Okay.
So there's a neat little twist. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the shillelagh that Sheamus usually brings to the ring there. So that was interesting, and that's the kind of foreign object thing. And maybe this leads us into the whole Extreme Rules thing, but I don't know what a Donnybrook match is going to be like. I'm not familiar with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know what a Donnybrook is, but I don't know what the WWE calls a Donnybrook match. So I don't know what kind of weapons or other stipulations are involved in that match. But this kind of gave us a taste of, there were 6 guys going at it. There were 3 fights here. One in the ring, 2 on the outside, little bit of distraction for the referee. And then a foreign object kind of used there at the end. I think it does a good job of not only building the fact that there's going to be a six-way faction match tomorrow at the pay-per-view, while also having something settled in the ring.
Yes.
And in the ring though, let's talk about how did we like how Sheamus almost won the match and then got confused, thinking that he did.
Yeah, I've never seen that. So where he thinks the guy tapped and then the guy is reaching, there's some cloverleaf hold. Sheamus puts Gunther in. Gunther is kind of going toward the rope and he does 2 taps on the ground. It seems like he taps. So super false finish. And then the ref's like, no, he didn't tap. So I've never seen it. So it's very interesting. But
have you seen you have seen a variation though? Like there's always a thing where the guy thinks the ref counted 3.
Always,
and it turns out he didn't.
The 3. I've never, and always something where like they get the finger. They kind of overuse this before, but they'll put like the finger on the rope. But this one I've never seen before, and it worked, and everybody's then yelling at the ref. So good on the ref. It's always tough. Gotta be really tough being any sort of referee, let alone a pro wrestling referee. You're just getting yelled at for the duration of the show. That's why they've got to switch these guys in and out because they're like, oh man, getting killed out there, So
well, this was an interesting twist. Like you're saying, I don't think I've seen the one where the guy taps the canvas twice. They're trying to make it look like he's reaching for the ropes and he's just missing and hitting the canvas.
Yeah.
Now to us with the close-up camera, it looks like boom, boom, 2 taps on the canvas, like he wasn't even trying for the rope.
Yeah,
I wonder how it looked to the live crowd.
Or I thought it was a botch. One of the two. Like I don't know why.
It could have been a botch. Like I wonder how it looked to the live crowd there in the arena, because he's swinging his arm twice, but it's very rapid.
Yeah.
So
like, is it very confusing?
It's not like he went, like he reaches, hits the canvas, reaches again, hits the canvas, and then reaches and gets it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like boom, boom, and then wait, grabs the rope. So it was confusing.
Right. It could have been legitimately confusing if you're there live. That's a great point.
And I don't know what the rule. It was confusing on TV.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm thinking in my head he's got to tap 3 times for it to be, like it's a 3 count. It's 3 taps for you to tap out. You don't tap out on the first one. Or am I not getting the wrestling rule correct? But I thought it was, you needed 3. Gosh, should I go old school here and just dig up something that nobody's going to have any idea what I'm talking about?
Go for it.
Okay. There's a really old, back when Bob Backlund was the WWE champion, back when it was WWF. He's the WWF heavyweight champion.
Sure.
He wrestles Greg the Hammer Valentine in Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And Valentine's going for a pin. And Backlund, as the ref is counting, Backlund smacks Valentine twice on his back. Valentine thinks it's the ref telling him that he won. Breaks the pin on the 2 count, stands up with his arm raised. Backlund winds up winning the match on that swerve. But like it was planned that way. So I don't know. Was Gunther trying to fool Sheamus, knowing that a tap out is 3, so he smacks twice? Sheamus eases up on the hold. Gunther gets whatever he needs to reach for the rope. I'm throwing that out there. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah, no. Seems like it was worked in, and at first I thought it was kind of a botch, but then because it was so storyline intense, I believe that it wasn't a botch. But ultimately,
I'll tell you what the botch was. The botch was that they took way too long to sequence out of that. I mean, Sheamus is just sitting there along the ropes for what seems like half an hour. I mean, in real time, it was probably 20 seconds, but in wrestling time, 20 seconds is half an hour.
Yeah.
What's he doing just sitting there across the bottom rope? The ref has told him, I don't know how many times, no, he didn't tap. He was reaching for the rope. The match is still going.
Yeah, that's a great point.
What is Sheamus doing just sitting there going against the bottom rope? Is he, at that point, is he waiting for were the guys in the back a little slow getting down to the ring to turn that into a Donnybrook? I mean, was the timing off? That part of the match looked weird to me. Everything I was willing to accept up to that point, including, the way that false finish went.
Yeah,
But
a little wonky there at the end, but maybe
bad
it
timing.
always
Didn't
feels
have
like
the
whenever
timing.
they do the run-ins that they're a little off, right? It's like, when are we going? When are we going? Like, whenever we would
Yeah,
do it, uh, the run-ins are always tough to coordinate because stuff's happening on the fly out there, and they're sort of improvising, but they're getting to that one point, and there
sure.
is like a signal for them to go. But then it's
Yep.
like, wait, you don't want to go too early, you don't want to go too late, like,
No.
but and it seems like, what was it? One team ran out and then the other team runs out. But did they both come from the back?
Gunther's
Team definitely came from the back.
faction comes out of the
Locker
locker room,
room.
and they come down first to just cheer him on. They're like pounding on the apron, which, I mean, they could have been out there a little sooner, and they could have done that while Sheamus was beating up on him. It was almost like Sheamus was waiting for something to happen.
Mhm.
Well, something happened, and then it looked like Sheamus's partners came out of the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which, I
exactly.
mean, that's kind of neat.
So that's tough to coordinate.
That's
Like
neat.
the two, like if you're all hanging out in the locker room, you could be like, okay, go, and then we'll go. But then you have to coordinate these guys that come in from the crowd, the baby faces,
Yep.
to yeah, that's kind of, it gets a little difficult to land on. There's some other
That worked. I was concerned because the initial run in it almost looked like the match was pausing for commercial break.
right. We were like, and
But they weren't. They've already done that. Like, this is it. This is the final
they
segment.
gave us plenty of commercial breaks. So
Right. I mean, they paid the bills like they're supposed to. I get it. Not complaining. But yeah, I get that WWE in this main event, they wanted to have a championship match and have a belt mean something. This was the only title match of the night.
mhm.
Um, so put an IC title match on there, and that means something. Um, B, tease the Donnybrook tomorrow at Extreme Rules. And then I guess they needed a creative way not to do the title change now.
Yeah, I thought that, like, just knowing that they had the pay-per-view tomorrow, it'd be wild. But I also thought, well, they've got like a new creative team. Triple H is out there. If he really wants to do something cool, it'd be like, hey, title changes can happen on SmackDown, and then come to the pay-per-view tomorrow anyway. Hey, like something like that.
On the other hand, what better teaser for tomorrow than to have a title change in the middle of the ring and then have just a brawl?
Yeah, right.
On the other hand, that could have worked too. So I'm going to say I get what they were trying to do. I don't know that it was executed all that well. The match at times seemed to be rather slow. I mean, it was brutal. They're trying to sell that these guys are working stiff.
Mm-hmm.
The chops to the chest. Sheamus is getting bruised and sometimes bleeding. The lacerations there across the top of his chest. Gunther taking shots as well. But it almost looked like the whole match was just slowing down for it to break down.
Yeah.
And so not a great final match for me.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely noticed lots of punching, like lots of strikes. So strikes,
That's their style.
and strikes are fine, but then after a while, it is kind of slow. Although the crowd was into it, kind of old school. And one thing I thought was awesome: no Irish whips. That is just like throwing the playbook out because everybody does the Irish whip. Everybody goes the
Sure.
down, the up, the you know, it's like the first thing
They use the ropes.
they use the ropes like crazy, and
Yep.
it's ridiculous. And then this one, they didn't use them at all, and I think it benefited the match, especially like two big guys like this. They don't need to be whipping each other off the ropes, doing the acrobatic moves. So I like that there was no Irish whips.
Yeah, it's a brawl. My goodness, it's like you're setting it up here. Greg the Hammer Valentine, who I've already mentioned,
He, he-
he used to hate running the ropes. He's like, this looks stupid.
it does. I mean,
It doesn't look. You wouldn't do this in a fight, you know.
yeah. If you're over, I mean, we were talking about it before the show, like Bret Hart with the realism, always thinking along those lines. Like, yeah, the Irish whip is a little like, why would somebody get thrown and then pop off back? But, anyways, I like the fact that there was no Irish whips. I thought it was stiff. Um, and then, yeah, I think it was pretty solid overall. I would say that's all I really had for the main event. I think there were other things in the show that were pretty good. I feel like the opener was good, and then the main was good, and then there was a lot of fluff in the middle of the show. Whereas last week we saw a little bit more action in the middle of the show with Rousey versus Natalia. That was a good match at 9, but this had a lot of fluff.
Let's do just a brief rundown by the numbers here. I'm counting 2 actual wrestling matches in the first hour, one of which was basically a squash match.
Yeah.
That was Raquel Rodriguez and Shotzi beating Sonya Deville and Zia Lee. Kind of a squash match. Other than that, it was Solo Sikoa versus Ricochet.
Yeah.
That's it. Karrion Kross and Drew McIntyre were in the ring, but it wasn't really a scheduled match.
I don't know what
it wound up being Drew McIntyre interrupting
that was
Karrion Kross.
Another confusing Karrion Kross segment.
I still don't know what he is. I don't get the gimmick. I get that he's big and that he's tough. And the strap match. Let's. Do you want to go off on weapons and extreme rules and stuff here?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, we were discussing this.
We might as well. That's what they're teasing for the big paper.
We were discussing this back in the studio together before the show started. Yeah, so oftentimes some people really like weapons and then some people don't. And somebody on this show does not like the weapons. Dom, maybe
I don't know who that would be. It's me. Here's my in a nutshell weapons. Mm-hmm. A foreign object is a foreign object because it's not supposed to be used. Once it's supposed to be used and the expectation is there to use it, it's no longer a foreign object. It's not really even like a hand-to-hand combat match anymore. It's like it's just weapons. And I don't get it. Now, the exception I make is for strap matches.
Oh, okay.
Because the strap match has a long history of being involved in some really good logical storytelling.
Yeah.
The strap match comes into vogue because, there's 2 rivals going at it. And the heel, because it's always the heel that, does the cowardly thing. The heel runs out of the ring and won't let there be a confrontation and gets counted out or gets disqualified so that the title won't change hands. And the baby face is frustrated. The crowd is frustrated. We want this to be settled in the ring. So what do you? I mean, there's a lot of gimmicks you could use. There's the lumberjack match where all the other wrestlers surround the ring and make sure the action stays in the middle. There's the cage where the guy can't get out of the cage now. There's no place to run. Well, the other way to do that is the strap match or the bull rope match.
Yeah.
You wrap the guys together by the wrist, and now you can't escape. You've got to settle it one way or another in the ring. Now, the wrinkle for the strap match is that it becomes a foreign object that's no longer foreign, and you can use it for some neat things. Like, as we saw from Karrion Kross, you hold the guy, you kind of strap it through the ring post in a way that holds up Drew McIntyre by his wrist, and then you come back around and whip him with the other side of it.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to use a weapon, so we'll do this. We'll talk about a good weapon, which is the strap. So the strap's pretty cool because you can just whip somebody with it, and it looks awesome, And then on the other side of that might be the baseball bat, which should be a pretty murderous weapon, but is always used so bizarrely in pro wrestling, where they're like jabbing and then like hitting softly on the back when, like, dude, a baseball bat shot to the head, probably deadly, but
to the back, same thing. Maybe
destroy you.
I think that the good thing about a strap match is that you get to use the strap as it is intended to be used. Whereas when you have a baseball bat, you can't use it the way a baseball bat is intended to be used.
You're pretty pigeonholed with a baseball bat. I'm not
right. And these other things as well.
Yeah.
So I will make an exception for a strap match if it's a blow off and makes sense. Like somebody, and maybe that's what they're setting up with Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross. Maybe the fact is that over all these months or weeks or whatever, Drew McIntyre hasn't been able to get Karrion Kross face to face. Like they're always jumping each other from behind and then, trying to do sneak attacks on each other. He can't get him face to face. All right, strap match. Now you got to be in the ring and there's no place to go. Can't sneak up on a guy in a strap match.
Okay.
Can't run out of the ring in a strap match.
Well, Dom, I like it. And I think, we're talking to the studio too. We've watched 2 Smackdowns. They're trying to pump us up for Extreme Rules. So what do you think? Do you think they've done a good job to build toward Extreme Rules? Would you be interested in getting it for like the right price? And their pay-per-views, let's just say that they're not like $60. Say it was like, hey, we have it on Peacock, it's $10. Would you consider getting it, or are you like, they haven't done a good job at building?
My answer doesn't have much to do with how they've been building it. My answer is that I don't think Extreme Rules makes the matches more interesting.
Yeah.
This is, and I get what the WWE has to do. You don't get a large audience by having a very narrow product just for people like me. You don't get millions of viewers by, putting out a product that some guy who remembers Bob Backlund versus Greg Valentine in Madison Square Garden and the double tap on the back is going to be interested. You've got to have something for everybody. And considering that WWE for years was also the only major promotion, it made sense for them to try to incorporate things from WCW and things from ECW into their collective product to see how many of the total pro wrestling audience they can retain. So I get the importance of Extreme Rules. If you like that kind of stuff, this is your pay-per-view. Enjoy it. Let me know how it goes. It doesn't make it more interesting for me. Ronda Rousey versus whoever she's fighting, the one who looks like Harley Quinn.
Well, yeah, Harley Quinn girl.
Liv Morgan. Ronda Rousey versus Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
I'm less interested in that because a bat is involved.
well, that was not a great segment last week.
But even the one we saw, like Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross, unless Karrion Kross has been weaseling his way out of matches, I'm less interested in that with a strap.
Yeah.
Unless there's a reason for that strap, I'm less interested in let's wrestle, but this time with a weapon that makes it even less realistic.
Dom, I'll even say it's interesting route they're going where they have Extreme Rules, where they have all of these weapon gimmick matches when really you'd want a pay-per-view with a bunch of regular matches, and then one of them is the weapons match, not like all of them. Every match is extreme in some way. Like it's just so it's just so weird from that perspective. But I would say, for $10, and I am going to be a bit of a homer here. Love ECW. I'm lived in Philadelphia for 12 years. I'm from South Jersey. It's in Philadelphia, so I can see that working in Philly because at worst, you're going to have people beating the hell out of each other, and we love that stuff here. So as long as it's kind of violent and it's gone over in the 90s and the aughts with ECW, it'll probably continue to go over. And ultimately, I'd say I would be in for the pay-per-view. It's not like the most amazing build in the world, but I'm like, 2 SmackDowns in, I'm like, they're doing okay.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up because, you're one of those audience members who remembers ECW fondly.
Very.
So,
yeah.
Very, and some with the local angle, but also just, there were a lot of people who liked that ECW style. Having a pay-per-view like this that goes down that road, do you like it? I mean, is it overkill to have the whole pay-per-view be like that?
Yeah.
Or do you like the fact that they're running basically an ECW pay-per-view?
Yeah.
Or what they think is an ECW pay-per-view? Because ECW had some great matches that did not involve weapons.
Well, yeah.
I remember
we
that.
Like Barely Legal in 97, everything wasn't blade jobs. They had great tag matches in the beginning of that show, and they were just tag matches. And then they build up, and then the main guys are bleeding all over the place. But, not every match people are bleeding and using weapons. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit overkill, but, yeah, that's kind of our hot takes there.
And that's good because you and I come from different backgrounds on that and different, basically what we like.
I wanted to do this because we're kind of coming closer toward the end of the show here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the intro. I should.
Yeah, I don't want to miss Bloodline.
Yes.
Do I like them? I'm 2 episodes back into WWE, and the Bloodline is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't have a title match in the last segment and weren't building to a pay-per-view tomorrow, I would argue that the lead, and don't bury the lead, John. Don't bury the lead. That's our show. Don't bury the lead.
Don't do it.
I'm going to say that I would have said that the lead here was the Bloodline. They had the most on-air time. There was a lot of variety between backstage vignettes, the 15, almost 20-minute segment in the ring, just talking, and a little bit of Logan Paul there to kick off. Solo Sikoa getting a match in the first hour, and then the 6-man in the second hour. I mean, 2 of the 3 non-squash matches were the Bloodline. The longest segment of the night was Bloodline. They had a backstage vignette, Bloodline. If there weren't a title match at the end pushing a pay-per-view, I'd say that the lead, you could argue that the lead was really the Bloodline.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you were into WWE's product before we started doing this, but some of that is new to me. I'm vaguely familiar with the Usos as a tag team. I remember Roman Reigns as being awkward when they tried to make him a solo performer.
Yes.
Like a singles competitor.
He was not over.
And then when they tried to make him like the man, he was doing not so well. I will say very quickly here, and I'll kick it to you. When he did that opening segment, his presence in the ring was different than I remember it. So as a performer, he's a different guy now. It's clearly an improvement. And, all that time that Vince spent insisting that Roman Reigns was going to be a star, it took a while, and, it was comical at times, but Roman Reigns, his presence, and I know Paul Heyman helps, but his presence, he looks and carries himself like he's a big deal. and I don't know what it's like in the arena, but you can see it on TV.
Yeah. No, agreed. Agreed from like when he first started, I should say, or even like I mean, I probably stopped watching WWE 3 years ago. Whenever AEW started, I was like, I'm out. Like, I'll start
Right.
watching AEW. And I kind of stopped watching it. And he was one of the big reasons that I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore because he just was kind of like this corny babyface character that didn't shoot a lot of good promos, but they'd always have him go out there and talk, which it's just not his strength. But now he doesn't have to do all the talking, so he doesn't have to memorize all the lines. So he could just go out, say his one or two lines. He's got the look, he can work, and then Heyman does all the dirty work, which is like when they have to go out and they do these like 15-minute segments, like Heyman can talk for 10 minutes and you're like, wow. And it doesn't even matter what Heyman says. It's like he's got such great pipes and timing. And so he's just out there saying nonsense and he's just saying all these stories. And but wait, and this and that. And he's making all the faces and the crowd eats it up. And I'm such, Heyman is probably one of the best managers today, if not the best manager. And those managers are so valuable when you have a guy like Reigns, where he's got the look, he can work, but like, I don't need to hear him talk for 20 minutes. I don't really need to hear many people talk for 20 minutes. There's very few that can do it for 20 minutes, and Heyman's one of the guys. So having him come out and kind of aid Roman Reigns, and then having his lackeys be twins is good, and also related to him. Jay and Jimmy Uso, who are pretty rough looking. I mean, they're pretty scary looking dudes. Like they're getting darker and darker. I don't know.
Tag champs.
Yeah, they're like
tag champs and legit.
Yeah, and then you have a little bit of the comic relief with Sami Zayn.
But Solo Sikoa, Street Fighter, his match with Ricochet was interesting because it was such a clash of styles. Solo wound up winning that match with a side slam. Ricochet had gone for what looked like a 450 off the top rope, and Solo caught him and went into the side slam for the pin. And that was, the Street Fighter versus, the spot fest guy, the high flyer, the guy who was quick and doing all these unusual looking kicks and strikes in Ricochet. That was a decent match though for styles that you think, how are they going to do this? How are they going to make this work? I thought it worked. So Solo he looks legitimate tough guy. The Usos look legitimate tough guys. Roman Reigns, tough guy. Sami Zayn can go, and my goodness, the awkward tension that Sami Zayn brings to this faction, to the bloodline. It's magnificent. Like he just oozes awkwardness. And I think that's what something needs, because they're trying to make the bloodline as this unstoppable faction. They've got all the belts, and they're just they're almost Gunther's faction in that regard. Like they're just steel-faced guys, tough guys. But then there's Sami Zayn, and it's the brilliant. Sometimes it's the contrast that makes it interesting. And Sami, and he's not just there for comedy. Sami can wrestle. But the awkwardness and some of the tension, not only between him and Jey Uso, but also the fact that it opens up some tension that Roman was having with Jey, and that Roman may have been having with Jimmy, and it just makes it more interesting. And it's not in the sense that they just are doing it for backstage vignettes. It's carrying into the ring. The 6-man match, like this was a big deal, that the whole match, Sami Zayn and Jey Uso, they're on the same team, but they're not getting along. Right. And Sami's trying, and Jay's trying to, on the other hand, reassert himself as, not the top dog, but the dog above Sami.
Right.
Like Roman's the top dog. Jay's, he's not Roman, but he doesn't want to be Sami Zayn. and that winds up being what cost them the match. Is Sammy and Jay get distracted. It becomes a brawl on the outside, and no one's there to make the save. When now almost a triple team winds up happening on Jimmy Uso in the ring. There, he's pinned by a New Day double team, and nobody makes the save because Sammy and Jay are on the outside. Getting distracted by themselves, then getting beat up because they were distracted by each other. That's good. That takes the stuff in the back and brings it into the ring. Because if stuff stays in the back, then it's kind of like a comic relief or something that's kind of a distraction. Distraction makes it sound bad, but something that's supposed to give you a breather. Yeah. But the fact that they're taking backstage stuff and they're bringing it into the ring.
Like a bathroom break segment or popcorn segment, like, oh, they're doing something in the back. Like those two dancing guys last week. I don't know who they were, but they kept doing that. And it was just like, okay, I don't know what.
They were on this one too. They were back here. And finally, they revealed who Eli Drake's name is now. He's L.A. Knight. I was watching him last week, and you heard me when we were watching. I said, that's Eli Drake. What's his name here?
Yeah.
And so today, I finally heard him. It was a backstage vignette, and something happened. And they've actually set up a match, I think, for next SmackDown. So we'll be able to do this next week when we review it. His name is L.A. Knight, which has the same cadence as Eli Drake, because Eli Drake was basically known for getting the crowd to chant his name, Eli Drake.
Oh.
It's 3 accented syllables.
Okay.
Eli Drake. And so they gave him a name that's so close to that anybody who knows him will catch it, and people who don't know it will catch on quickly.
Yeah.
L.A. Knight. So let's see. So that looks like it's coming out into the ring. Because last week it was a bathroom break, unless you were me and go, that's Eli Drake. What's he doing?
No, I mean.
But now it looks like it's coming out into the ring. So it's not going to be a bathroom break next week.
All right, Dom. I'd say L.A. Knight. We're going to look forward to him for sure, who is Eli Drake. And it definitely is a guy you could tell from last week. And, we're kind of coming toward the end here. I would say, do you have any final thoughts overall on the show that you wanted to share? What did you think? Was it good, okay, bad?
I'm going to say overall good. This was a different show than last week. Last week's show featured more wrestling in the ring.
Yes.
And actually some better matches. Actually, I think better in-ring action. This show was less of that, more angles, fewer matches. But the angles I thought were interesting. I'm getting into the bloodline, so it's working. The angle stuff is working on me. It's reintroducing me to their product. I understand where they're going with a lot of this stuff. So even though I like the in-ring stuff and there wasn't a lot of that in the show, I'm gonna say because the angle stuff and non-match stuff was valuable and seemed to propel things forward, I'm gonna say overall good show.
Yeah,
I liked it.
And I definitely agree with this. Like, less wrestling. I prefer more wrestling, obviously, rather than like intros and then all these things to set up for different angles. But they have to go in that route. They always have to have sort of like one episode where they start to develop some storyline. I would obviously, I prefer more wrestling. It was cool to see how far Roman Reigns has come and how good he was with Heyman. Because I've only read that he's been really good recently, and I haven't really seen it, but it definitely is confirmed. Logan Paul is just a guy. I mean, he's just. I don't
know who he is.
I don't know who he really is. I don't know what he's really done either. I know
he looks like he's built. He's Jake Paul's brother, apparently, and Jake Paul is tangentially involved in either boxing or MMA.
Yes.
So it looks like Logan Paul can go. Stature-wise, he looks to be about Roman's height, so it doesn't look like a squash match. It looks like it could be a decent feud.
Some of the
Storylines have to finish in the ring. The storylines should finish in the ring, but they don't have to start
Yeah.
there.
I mean, this is
And I think that's what we're seeing. If your backstage stuff is going to lead to something that gets into the ring, great.
he's
So
he's definitely very, very, very green out there on the mic, and with all the way he's standing and the actions, like, but he's just a guy right now.
I thought he was decent on the mic. Like if he's a YouTuber, he's good at
Yeah,
talking. I haven't seen him wrestle. I don't know what he's going to be like in the ring. So my concern for this angle is, what does Logan Paul do when he has to get in the ring? It's not like Roman Reigns. He might be better than we remember him. He's not Ric Flair. He's not going to carry somebody who's terrible.
right, right. He's is he?
So Logan Paul's got to be able to go
Mhm.
here. If he's terrible, he's going to look terrible.
Yes, he's not wrestling Dean Malenko or
No,
uh,
one of the guys who could have a 45-minute match with a broom
yeah,
handle and, go to a 45-minute. The old joke is someone could go to a 45-minute draw with a coke bag.
sure. Maybe Bret Hart. I think everybody's best
Yeah,
matches against Bret Hart. Like he
sure,
squeezed like pretty good matches out of Kevin Nash when he was just doing two moves. So
sure.
yeah, I'd say from my perspective though, like completely agree on the different angles being built up, and I prefer a little bit more wrestling, but it's still a good show. Good main event, good opener, okay middle stuff. So good show.
To spin it forward, are you interested in where this wasn't the lead, but it looks